Good morning and welcome to Football Digest Extra Time. My name's Andy Dunn. I'm the chief sports writer for the Daily Mirror, and I'm joined by Sam Inkersole, who's the Chelsea writer for Football London. And we both had the privilege of being at the Etihad Stadium on Saturday night to see Manchester City's coronation as Premier League champions. Alas, it didn't quite work out like that. Morning, Sam. I just want to, you know what, there's a lot of implications for that game. And, it was put into a lot of context in terms of the Champions League and in terms of Tuchel getting another one over on Pep. But you know what? I came away thinking, what's been forgotten here is that Tuchel, while he's in the FA Cup final, while he's in the Champions League final, he was brought in, first and foremost to do one job, and that's to get Chelsea in that top four position. And that was an absolutely, forget who the opposition were, that was a crucial win for them in that quest for the top four.
Yeah, absolutely was. And I think it was a morning, by the way. And also taking advantage of Leicester's slip up on Friday night as well at Newcastle. As you rightly say, Tuchel, the whole remit when he was parachuted in to replace Frank Lampard in January was simply just to get top four and to protect that Champions League place for next season. He's doing that with flying colours at the moment. And yeah, any silverware is a bonus. I mean, just Champions League's a massive bonus, obviously. But 2 defeats in 25 games. You can't complain with what he's doing at the moment at Stamford Bridge. He's completely changed things around from where they were under Lampard. And as you say, twice in the last 3 weeks, he's got Pep Guardiola's number in the last couple of weeks. I'm sure Pep will have something to say about that in a couple more weeks' time.
Well, he will. And while I said that is clearly the most important thing for Chelsea was to try and cement that top four spot, and that's and that was their toughest game on paper in the run-in, and they've won that. And while that is the case, we can't ignore the fact that this is now building up into a rivalry between these two guys and these two clubs. And what did you think when? There was an element of the phony war about it when I saw the team sheets. Chelsea, where you wouldn't say had every single A listed out, but when you saw Manchester City's team sheet, what did you think about that?
It struck me as was it the FA Cup semi-final when Pep made 7 changes? I think it was for the game, and he was accused of disrespecting the competition, and then he made 9 at the weekend. I suspect he probably wanted to think, oh yeah, I've made 9 changes, but I can still wrap up the title this weekend by beating Chelsea, who are in such good form. I wasn't surprised to see Tuchel make changes. With the Champions League that they've been playing and the relentless fixture schedule that we know every team's had this season. So it wasn't a real surprise to see the likes of Mason Mount, Thiago Silva, Ben Chilwell get the weekend off. But Chelsea still had 7 players out that played against Real Madrid in midweek and beat Real Madrid in midweek. So yeah, but then again, Pep, if he makes 9 changes, his squad is still ridiculously strong, isn't it? It's ridiculous.
Could you just confirm to us, Sam? I assume Mount, Chilwell, and Silva were all just rested, basically. Yes.
They were all just given the weekend off. Mount's played in pretty much every game since Tuchel arrived. I think he's only missed 2 when he come off the bench in both of those. And Thiago Silva, obviously at 36, had a grueling 90 minutes against Madrid in midweek. Was given the weekend off, and so was Chilwell, who's really forced himself back into recognition as the number 1 left wing back, having had a bit of competition from Marcos Alonso since Tuchel came in.
What amazes me, Sam, it really, well, when I say amazes me, I mean surprises me, is at this stage of the season, certainly Manchester City, and to a certain extent, I mean, you can probably correct me if I'm wrong on this, with Chelsea, is there how many players they've actually got fit at this stage of the season? I think it's remarkable. City in particular, a couple of weeks ago, so you're talking about the end of April, the start of May, Pep Guardiola gave a press conference where he said, every player was fit. I thought every player on the roster fit. This is remarkable. Jurgen Klopp must have been listening to it and thinking, what are they doing there? But I think it's testament to both clubs that a lot of their players are fit. And what I thought when I saw that team, that City team, is, for one, I thought it was a completely unbalanced team. Essentially, he only had one midfielder in that team, which was Rodri. The rest were either attackers or a defender. He had a torrid time in Benjamin Mendy. So they were light in midfield. But what struck me is that when I looked at the Chelsea bench, even though Chilwell and Mount weren't even in the squad, and we always talk about, we look in awe at Manchester City's squad. But what struck me was that that was a healthy bench Chelsea were putting out as well. Callum Hudson-Odoi on the bench, and Jorginho on the bench, Kai Havertz on the bench. They have, Sam, I think people have overlooked, they have got a good squad. And I just want to ask you about what's impressed me is how most of their recruits, if not all, seem to be settling in now really well.
Yeah, it was that initial struggle under Lampard in the back end of last year, which rose a lot of questions about Timo Werner, for example, and Kai Havertz, the two big money signings, not selling into the Premier League. But Tuchel's come in. You can look at it back with hindsight, bringing in a German head coach, and the two Germans are playing pretty well. Is it a coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. But Chelsea have only had Mateo Kovacic out injured really for the last month. He missed the game. He got injured before the second leg against Porto in the Champions League quarter-final, and he's been pretty much their only real injury issue. Everyone else has just been rested. Tuchel's only named one unchanged side as well since he arrived. So he's rotated his players. He's kept them all fresh. He's given them rest when they need to. And that's why they've got such a healthy squad at the moment at such a crucial time of the season. And looking at Chelsea's squad, it's always been strong, hasn't it? I think we knew that from the summer and the recruits that they made. But Tuchel has managed to keep them all in shape, in fit and healthy, and it's reaping the dividends.
I honestly think, and I think in the modern game, and I certainly know coaches don't underestimate it, but I think when they recruit, you sometimes read about them sort of poaching sort of medical people from other clubs, and I understand why. These guys should go for big transfer fees. These guys are hugely important. Keeping this squad fit, and for someone like Guardiola or Thomas Tuchel to be able to rotate like that is just such, such an advantage against other teams. But also, of course, as we saw on Saturday, it can be, I think Guardiola was maybe a bit too clever. But the details of the game, Sam, it was fairly even. I actually thought that after City had scored, I thought their first penalty, their only penalty, we'll come on to that later, was a little bit soft. I thought Gilmore on Jesus was a little bit soft. But talk us through, and talk us through. You were there, and as you know, we are quite close to the bench, aren't we, at the Etihad? So we can see the reactions, and it's fair to say that Pep wasn't overly pleased when Sergio Aguero chipped it into Mendy's left hand.
Yeah, when you try that, Panenka, when you pull it off, you look like a genius, and when you get it wrong, you look a bit foolish. And it really did happen to bite him on the backside in the end, didn't it? With the end of the result, yeah. Well, Guardiola's a very passionate man anyway, isn't he? And you could just see him often throwing his hands up in frustration, slapping his legs, and just if someone misplaced a pass, it was just he's very emotional man, very expressive. So is Tuchel, to be fair.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It was a little bit of a competition between the two, wasn't it? Because Tuchel in particular was. I think he was annoyed about, I can't remember, I think he was trying to get Kurt Zuma on when Christensen had been injured in the build-up to that first goal. And he was very animated as well. I just want to quickly go back to that penalty, because I read a piece this morning in one of the newspapers, which was essentially saying, this always happens. You always, once you've done a story so much, you go the opposite way and it gives it more legs. And the idea is, people shoot low into the corner and miss. People shoot high into the corner and it gets saved. Why does someone get completely sort of slated for just chipping it down the middle? And I get that. And the idea is, 8 times out of 10, that will go in. And if you hit a ball into a corner with pace, 8 times out of 10, so it's the same law of averages. But someone did say as well, they thought that what had been completely overlooked was the calmness and of Mendy, of Edouard Mendy. Yeah. Was that, he didn't overly commit, and he did have the presence of mind to actually think, well, that might happen and get it. And I sort of get that. It was a bad Panenka anyway. However, what that brings me on to ask you, Sam, is that, again, it's something I think has gone under the radar, just what an influence Mendy has had on this Chelsea team. It's been transformative, hasn't it? Certainly in the Champions League.
In the Champions League, he was sensational against Real Madrid in midweek. He made 2 huge saves from Karim Benzema that would have got Real Madrid that away goal that they so desperately needed. I think is it 18 clean sheets? I think Mendy's kept this season in all competitions, which is a remarkable run. I'm pretty sure it's maybe 13 or 14 of them have come since Tuchel arrived. Chelsea just don't concede goals, especially at home. They don't concede goals. Having a 5-man defence obviously helps in that regard, and Mendy's been well protected at times, but considering where Chelsea were with Kepa and having to sign Mendy essentially last summer because Kepa wasn't deemed to be up to the job, bringing him in, there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders. And I think he's proved quite a few people wrong. I think myself included, I was a little bit sceptical of Mendy at times. He looked a bit skittish at the start, but he's really, really settled in now. And when you've got Rolls Royce defenders like Thiago Silva in front of him. Andreas Christensen have been playing well up until the weekend, made a bit of a stinker. Cesar Azpilicueta has been playing very well. So has Antonio Rudiger. You've got that safety blanket almost in front of you, but Mendy still had to up his levels. And Tuchel's obviously played Kepa 5 times as well, so he's just nudging him along, just keeping him there to make him to say, like, you can't rest on your laurels. You've still got to perform. And all credit to Mendy. He's been superb.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it has gone under the radar a bit, his influence, and what I thought, I mean, what he had to do, which was fairly limited against Real Madrid. He did excellently. The save low down to his left, and I thought on Saturday, looking at him live for the first time in a little while, I don't know. I just think he just looks far more comfortable. You said he was a bit skittish. I agree. His distribution, is not Ederson standard or not Ederson flamboyance. But it was pretty solid on Saturday. And as you say, it does help when you've got a defence like that, because I think City, even though, they might have edged it a little bit, I didn't think they created that many chances. And it was important, wasn't it? So Mendy makes that save from the penalty. And don't forget, I think people should remember, he saved the penalty. And I think then, clearly that was crucial going into half-time, wasn't it? And then Chelsea, that would have given them such a lift coming out for the second half. And second half, they played very well.
I thought they dominated that second half. Tuchel said after the game at his press conference that he just said, "Look, let's just act like it's 0-0." That's typical Sunday League thing, isn't it? When you can see the goals, pretend it's 0-0 and then you go again, and that's exactly what they did. And I thought they fully deserved the win, especially after their second half performance. The wing backs were crucial. I think they got so much further on the pitch. I think you alluded to it earlier. Reece James gave Benjamin Mendy an absolutely horrendous time in that second half. Reece James showing why he's very much firmly in the equation for starting for England at the Euros, in my opinion. And then on the left-hand side as well, Marcos Alonso was getting further forward, and he ended up getting the winner. So and Chelsea had a lot of crosses coming in from either side as well. And their second half performance was superb. And I think
was very good, wasn't it? You're right. And Reece James Alonso, I think Reece James in particular in that position. As you say, again, that was where on our side of the pitch, wasn't it? And we could see Guardiola's frustration with Benjamin Mendy, which eventually ended up with him, actually taking him off and put on Zinchenko. The irony being that the actual winning goal actually came down that flank as well. And, they overloaded that side and they did pay dividends. I just want to go into the equaliser or more about the guy who scored the equaliser. I mentioned before about signings taking a little bit of time, but all of them, pretty much settling in now. And Ziyech is clearly an example of that, isn't he? He was good on Saturday, wasn't he? I thought he was really good.
He was very good on Saturday, and he showed just with that finish, keeping the ball down low into the corner where Ederson got a hand on it but couldn't keep it out. Just pinpoint accuracy from that finish. He kind of floats in and out of games, Ziyech, but you just know he's got that moment in him where he can just flick the switch and turn it on. I wouldn't say it's been an easy time for him under Tuchel. He's found himself in the team and then out of the team again, but that's probably down to the embarrassment of riches pretty much that Tuchel has at his disposal. But Ziyech, when he has given the chance, he's trusted him in big games as well as Tuchel. And he's come up with the goods. And I thought he was very good at the weekend. I was actually quite surprised Tuchel took him off actually midway through the second half. I was very surprised he withdrew him, but clearly it paid off.
I know it did pay off. It's funny, I was surprised. I was also doing, as well as a reporter, I was also doing ratings, and I had him down as my man of the match, so I was giving him an 8 or a 9 and whatever, and then he took him off. And I thought, and you always wonder about giving someone man of the match when they take him off. But having said that, he took Kante off as well relatively early on. I want to go on to we'll come on to a couple of the controversial incidents shortly, but the winning goal, I want to go on to the guy who's assisted it, because there has been a lot of talk about Timo Werner over recent weeks. I'm surprised he was, in a way, I was a little bit surprised he was still on the pitch. Again, that's, a good management by Tuchel, who certainly in the Champions League seems to have been, this might just be my imagination, but basically running him into the ground for 60, 65 minutes and then replacing him. He didn't this time, and he set up the winner. And I just want to talk about Timo Werner, because, when I listen to commentaries when I'm not at the game, and I do think he is a little bit unfairly maligned. He was criticised for being, I don't know, a quarter of a yard offside in that game against Real. People are very quick to knock him for the chances he misses, but I think he's shown, isn't he, that listen, let's assume those goals go in. If they do, and he continues to produce what he does in terms of overall team play, overall contributions, he could be one hell of a player for Chelsea.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's magnitude, isn't it, with those chances that he's missed, because he has missed a few sitters, and that sticks out. But to be fair, I think the stat is, I think he's been involved in 23 goals this season for Chelsea as of the weekend with the assist, and that's I think only Eden Hazard has done more. And Werner had a slow start, he had a fast start, and then really struggled with Frank Lampard, who couldn't really find the right position for him. And Tuchel's managed to find it, playing as a second striker, using his ridiculous pace that he's got, which is very underrated, to get in behind. And that's exactly how the equaliser came about, because he ran through and then played the cross in. I think he's been very unfairly maligned, because he's not scored 29 goals like he did at Leipzig last season. Everyone expected him to come and hit the ground running, and perhaps Chelsea did when you spend £49 million on a player. You don't buy assists, really, do you? But give him a season. It's the same as most new signings. You give him a season to settle in, and then I think next season he'll hit the ground running. Same as Kai Havertz, who's been really impressive recently as well.
I agree, and I think you mentioned there £49 million, and it's a lot of money, but it's sort of not far. Not much more than, say, City played for Nathan Ake, who we haven't seen most of the season. He's been injured, but he played I thought he played quite well actually on Saturday. So it's big money, but it's not huge money. And I think you mentioned here about Leipzig and not scoring the goals he scored there, but bear in mind they play a different way, and a lot of that was a bit more direct and using his pace, and he is. Every time I see him now, I think, he's remarkably quick. I saw him up when Chelsea, I think they win up at Anfield.
They did, yeah.
And he didn't score, but he gave them
that day.
He gave them a torrid time, didn't he? Particularly in that first half, if I remember. And also, Werner, of course, was involved in one instance early on. I think it was Werner, when Raheem Sterling was booked, and there was some suggestion at the time that the yellow might have been upgraded to a red. Personally, I didn't think so. What were your views on that one?
Yeah, I mean, it looked a lot worse when it slowed down into freeze frame, and then everything happens like that. Once it all gets slowed down like that, and you see the contact, then it looked a little bit stronger. And it was a pretty hefty challenge from Sterling. It has to be said, but I think yellow card was probably about right. And I think Tuchel said as well, if VAR is not gonna, if VAR doesn't look at it, then it's not going to be upgraded or anything like that. So it was, Sterling. It was, I think, because he lost the ball, didn't he, and then tried to go and get it back, and then launched into a tackle. I mean, if you've seen him given, though, to be fair, especially this season.
And we've seen a couple of I've certainly seen one at the Etihad when Liam Cooper's yellow card for Leeds was upgraded, and that was a lot worse tackle. I'm the same with you. You see it so often, don't you, when a player loses the ball and his desperate attempt to atone for his mistake ends up in a bit rash. I agree. I think yellow was fine, and of course, then as much as I wrote this, I genuinely believe that there was no miscarriage of justice in terms of the overall results of the game. I mean, I do think that I don't know, 19 times out of 20, 29 out of 30, Zuma's challenges on Sterling gets given as a penalty.
Yeah, he probably fouled him 2 or 3 times, I think, in the whole build up to that. Yeah, I was incredibly surprised that wasn't given. I don't know. I don't think Aguero was on the pitch then. I didn't even taken off. So I'm not sure if he'd taken the penalty then in the second half. But I thought Chelsea were very lucky to get that.
They were very lucky. I think probably Ederson would have taken a penalty thing then, because who else was on the pitch? Gundogan had come on then, and he's taken a penalty, but he's missed one.
Jesus was on as well, I think, wasn't he as well?
I think he's probably missed one. I'm sure they've missed. I mean, they've missed 9 since the start of last season. They've missed 4 this seson. That's for sure. De Bruyne has obviously missed one, but he wasn't even at the ground.
Foden might have taken it. You never know.
Foden might have taken it, but overall, I think Chelsea's ahead. But I do think I do think that Anthony Taylor. I don't quite know, because, as I say, I thought it was like 10 times more a penalty than the Gilmour challenge on Jesus was. As Gary Lineker tweeted, he said, to be fair, Zuma only fouled him 4 times. I think he was probably right. But that would have been a bit fortunate for City. I just wonder, Sam, I do wonder in terms of, these referees are obviously very familiar with players. And I do think that maybe he's just thought that Raheem has maybe exaggerated things in the past. I don't know. And also, maybe they're looking for the idea. The only thing that he might have thought was that Sterling deliberately sort of slowed down to engineer the contact himself, but I still think they got away with that. But then, of course, Alonso gets the winner. Now, when we do talk about it in the context of May the 29th, and in the context of Tuchel already beating Guardiola in the FA Cup semi-final, And as much as it clearly is not going to be, that City team will be nothing like the team that takes the field in the Champions League final, it must still be a bit of a marker down there, the Tuchel throw, mustn't it?
No, yeah, massively. He said in his pre-match press conferences both times before playing Man City that he says that they're the benchmark. That's where that's who they want to be emulating and at least competing with. He's done that twice now. Champions League final is a completely different kettle of fish, though, isn't
yes.
it? It's a one-off game. Anything can happen one-off game. But you suspect in a one-off game, Tuchel can. Mourinho was very good at it, wasn't he? Getting his team set up for one-off matches. Tuchel, you suspect he will do the same. While City's team, will be drastically different. Chelsea's will probably show a few changes as well. So I think both managers didn't really show their hands. Maybe a little bit. You know what you're getting from Chelsea. I think maybe a little bit more than Man City. But yeah, it certainly lays down a marker, and it gives the players, I think, more than anything, huge confidence going into the final, wherever it is at the end of the month, that they can get the job done.
Exactly, and I do think in the past Guardiola has had what we'd say a tendency to overthink things in the Champions League. But I do think pretty much we know what his Champions League lineup is going to be. It's essentially probably going to be the team that played against PSG in both legs. There might be whether Rodri, Fernandinho, there might be a little bit of, and then left back. I think from what we saw on Saturday, I think Zinchenko would definitely be left back. So City's first team against Chelsea's first team. I mean, it is a tough one to call, isn't it? Okay, City are now going to go on and win the Premier League, one assumes, but it is a very, very tough one to call, isn't it? They look closely matched squads, don't they?
They look really closely matched at the moment, especially with Chelsea in the form that they're in since Tuchel arrived. Next season is going to be interesting as well. I'm not going to look too far ahead, but I can imagine saying next season, I think you can get odds of something like 6-1 on Chelsea winning the league next season, which I think is very tempting. But yeah, the Champions League final is really tough to call. Chelsea will obviously bring back Jorginho, will play. I think he's got a decision to make at right wing back, considering how well Reece James played at the weekend. But Cesar Azpilicueta played there in both legs of the Champions League semi-final against Madrid. Ben Chilwell will come in at left back. And Mason Mount's an automatic starter, and then he's also got to decide who he plays in that false nine role, whether it's Kai Havertz, who did the job against Madrid in the second leg, or maybe even Ziyech or Christian Pulisic, or Timo Werner, who plays up there. So I think Chelsea is a little bit more up for debate as to who starts. City, as you say, is very settled, but Tuchel's is going to have a few selection headaches, I think, because everyone's just obviously going to be itching to get in that starting lineup for the final.
Yeah, and you said something, you don't want to look too far ahead. I mean, I would like to just look at a couple of things. Certainly from a City point of view, I'm wondering what they will do in the off season. I mean, we all turn around, we all say, "Oh, he needs a striker." Clearly, Aguero's going, and clearly, probably the evidence of Saturday probably suggests that's the right decision. As fantastic a servant as he's been, and I think a lot of us, would turn around to Guardiola and say, about getting a conventional striker because he'll be left with Jesus, and he's going for Haaland or Kane. I mean, Guardiola's argument, quite rightly, and it's a very compelling one, as he turns around to us and says, "Well, hang on a minute, guys, we've scored 100 odd goals this season. We got to the FA Cup semi-final. We're about to win the Premier League. We're in the Champions League final. We've won the Carabao Cup. It's not exactly, it's not exactly going disastrously, is it?" And he's got a point, obviously. And they've scored over 700 goals in the time he's been there. 2.5 a game. So who are we to tell him that he needs a conventional striker? However, when you look at the goal scoring charts, I mean, I think his top scorer in the Premier League is Ilkay Gundogan with 12 goals. I'm not even sure that gets into the top 10. So do you think that City either need to or will reinforce up front next year?
I think they will, because you're losing Aguero, who I think we agree on that is. Saturday could have been his big swan song, I think, but it didn't pan out that way. I do think that they will go and try and sign a striker this summer, whether that's Haaland, who Chelsea are also interested in as well, Harry Kane as well. Even reports that Romelu Lukaku's available as well. He wouldn't be the worst option either. So I think, City, if City get that number 9 that can replace Aguero, if you can replace Aguero, that is, to replace Aguero, then they'll be serious again next season. That average of 2.5 goals a game might go up to maybe 3 or 3.5.
Might go up. Exactly. And I think, Sam, having watched the Carabao Cup final, I know it seems like, it's very easy to put 2 and 2 together and come up with 4. But, I saw what Spurs were doing and I saw what City were doing. I was thinking, well, if you take that man there, the centre forward for Spurs, and put him in City's side, then it would be frightening. So we'll see what pans out. I just want to have a few finishing words on Thomas Tuchel. I mean, I just want to know what you've dealt with them a lot more than me. You've seen them a lot more than me. What's the impression you've built up? It surely can't be anything but positive of what he's done since he come in. I mean, did you have any reservations to start with, and have they been banished?
I think the only reservations when he came in was that he often butted heads with those above him. It happened at Borussia Dortmund, and it happened with PSG as well, which obviously eventually led to his downfall at both clubs. But since he's arrived, he's been nothing but positive. Obviously, the results speak for themselves, but he's an incredibly affable man. He's very funny. Very funny man, actually. His command of English, he's fluent in English, so he can get his point across. But he does come across as that real tactical thinker, someone that really knows what they're doing and has got quite a deep thought process into things. I think you said that Pep Guardiola often overthinks things in the Champions League. You get that. I don't think Tuchel overthinks things. He just knows how to get the best out of his squad. It's almost like, right, this is the squad I've got available. This is what I'm going to do to make you better. I'm not going to try and imprint a style on this team. I'm not going to try and tinker too many things. Like, I will work with you to get the best out of you, rather than this is my way or the highway kind of thing. That's the impression that I get off of Tuchel. And the players all love him. He's he likes a hug. N'Golo Kante is not quite keen on that, apparently, but he's quite. It's
allowed from today, Sam. Anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's allowed from today. He's an expressive man. He shows his emotions. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He doesn't take it, and he also shows that he doesn't suffer fools easily either. He's not afraid to make substitutions. I mean, not to put anything on Tammy Abraham, but obviously he's been completely frozen out really since Tuchel came in, and he subbed him off twice at half time in his first 3 appearances. Hasn't helped being injured as well, but he's struggling to find a way back into the team. So he knows what he wants, and it will do everything to make sure that he gets in there. He wants to create a real. He often uses the word bond, like to create a good team spirit, and he believes that's the most important part of it, which is obviously difficult at the moment with COVID bubbles, etc., in the Premier League. But look at the results. Look at how well he's doing. He must be doing something right.
I agree. I think I mean, I'm not a. It's probably because I've been around for a long time, but I'm not a massive one of managers being on the pitch at the end of a game. I have to say, I remember when it was a polite shake of the hands, and they'd go off and have a beer together away from the cameras. They seem to be on the pitch all the time now. But I did like him going round each and every one of the Chelsea players at the end of the game on Saturday. And what I really like about him was that after the game against Real, I mean, it's easy to be. You're obviously going to be happy, but he just seems to, his expression of how much he feels also privileged to be doing the job that he's doing, but loving every single minute of it. And I think that comes across. He's clearly loving every single minute of what he's doing, and without a doubt, I mean, he's going to be, as I say, just looking down here, the snapshot of the pair of them talking, Tuchel and Guardiola before the game, they were engrossed in conversation. The sort of the reactions during the game, I just think, I think it's great that the Pep is going to stay in the Premier League, and he's going to have a rival in Tuchel that is going to be, I mean, you can imagine Tuchel, Klopp, Guardiola going head to head, not to mention, obviously Solskjaer and whoever Spurs get, and the likes of Ancelotti. I think we're blessed at the moment. I just want to finish, Sam, on the game on the 29th. Where will it be won and lost, and who will win and lose it?
Where will it be won and lost? I think. Well, Chelsea's obvious strength is their defence at the moment. It's going to be a narrow game, a tight game, which is not to be unexpected in the Champions League final. It's going to be a 1-0 or a 2-1 or something like that, or maybe even after extra time, and then we'll see what happens. But I think if Chelsea can keep out City to the best of their abilities, like they did at the weekend, obviously didn't keep a clean sheet, but did keep a clean sheet against them in the FA Cup semi-final, then they can nick a goal from anywhere. I think, especially when you've got Timo Werner in the side, Kai Havertz in your side, Ziyech, Pulisic in that side. I think you can nick a goal from somewhere that could just be enough. And Chelsea have shown their defensive strength to keep even attack like City's out, despite them probably launching balls forward and playing at their very fluent best. So if Chelsea are going to win, I think that's where it's going to come from. They're going to have to rely on their solid foundations and their excellent goalkeeper, I think, to try and simply keep City out and nick one up the other end.
Yes, I agree. I mean, you mentioned sort of odds before, and I'm sure I haven't double checked, but I'm certain it's the Manchester City will be favourites. But I don't think that's right. I think they've shown that they can not only keep City out, but on Saturday, limit them over these two games. Now I know it's a different team. I think they'll be able to limit them to. I'm impressed with the way they limit them to very few chances, and I do think that City's defence, while it has been the bedrock of their success this season, with only 20 odd goals conceded in the Premier League, 5 of them in one game. While it has been the bedrock of their success, I do think it is a little bit vulnerable to pace down the middle. Stones and Diaz, I do think Werner can get at them. And, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the game go in a very similar way that it went, albeit with different personnel. On Saturday, well, Sam, hopefully I'll see you there. If probably
wherever it may be.
Wherever it may be. If it comes to England, we'll definitely see you there. And if not, maybe see you in Istanbul. Sam, thanks for your time this morning. And thanks, everyone, for watching Football Digest Extra Time.
Thanks.